Here's what we do know. Both sides of the coming political storm are preparing for all-out war when this thing comes out. I told you from the beginning this was going to be a political fight ultimately. We're about to have it. Now, you know which side Congressman Matt Gaetz is on. He's all in for Team Trump. The Judiciary Committee member joins us now. Welcome back to Prime Time.
Thank you, though. We're not preparing for war, Chris. My constituents actually go to war and fight wars. This is a political battle.
Look, I agree. I wish it were just a semantical thing, but it will be so ugly. It will be so intense, and it will be so unfounded as it goes along. So I use it as metaphor, but you're right. We all honor our fighting men and women. They make the real sacrifices. I hope you guys remember that when the Mueller report comes out in terms of how you conduct yourselves. To that point, let's get something out of the way, all right? When Cohen was coming before Congress, you didn't like it. You didn't believe in his credibility. You thought it was the wrong move for the committee. But you said things that were ugly and obvious. I want to put up the tweet to remind people, and I also want to remind people that you decided to own it. Very rare these days that somebody admits they made a mistake. What was your mistake?
Well, Chris, your viewers and my constituents know I fight hard, sometimes too hard. This was one of those cases. I should not have mentioned Michael Cohen's family in that tweet. I apologize, took it down. I'll try to do better.
And just to be clear, there's nothing coming that you have or anybody else that you know about has about any of these suggestions that you made in that tweet.
I'm not going to discuss that because to do so would be to invoke someone's family, and it's just not a line I'm going to cross. My challenges with Mr. Cohen deal with his credibility, not his family, and that's why I'm not going to go into that stuff.
Well, good for you. Keep it clean. If you can't win the argument on the facts, you're not going to win it at all.
I will thank you, though, Chris. When the other CNN personalities were like calling for me to be arrested and imprisoned, you made the point that I wasn't threatening Michael Cohen. I was trying to cast him in a bad light as a bad dude. I did so inartfully and in a way that I shouldn't have. But those are two very different things, and I appreciate you for drawing out that distinction as Don Lemon was breathing in and out of a paper bag or whatever he was doing.
Well, listen, D. Lemon can defend himself. He has his own feelings. This is my show. I do it my way. So let's get after it right now on what matters. Do you believe that this is about the end, or do you think there's a chance we see more indictments?
I don't know. I do think that Judge Ellis and Judge Jackson have a very different view on the genesis of this entire Russia investigation. Judge Ellis clearly viewed the prosecution of Manafort not as a sincere one to punish someone for their wrongdoing, but as a mechanism to try to get to President Trump. Judge Jackson appears to have taken exception.
Hold on a second. I understand what you're pointing to in the rhetoric of the judge, but the judge did allow the case to go forward.
Well, I mean, yeah,
and did endorse the prosecution and the verdict.
He gave Manafort functionally an 80% pardon by not following the federal sentencing guidelines and knocking him down so much.
But if the judge thought that it was a political move, he would have thrown it out. Well, that's what a judge does.
Well, he said it was a political move. The point is, Judge Ellis is done. Now we're on to Judge Jackson.
Right.
And the point I would make there is that Judge Jackson seems to have a very different view. She was very harsh with Manafort when she made factual findings that she believed he violated his plea deal. But here's the important context for the country. This stuff that Manafort is accused of doing wrong has nothing to do with his service in the Trump campaign. Manafort did some ugly stuff before he was ever working for Trump. He did some ugly stuff after he was working for Trump. But during the time that he was working for the president, his work for the campaign never has resulted in a criminal charge. And I think it's important to remember why Paul Manafort was even working for Donald Trump. You and others have said, well, why does Donald Trump have these seedy characters around him like Cohen, like Manafort? And with Manafort, it was very simple. Donald Trump kept winning states in the primary, but local state parties kept installing Ted Cruz delegates, faithless delegates to the convention. And when you look around, there's not a whole hell of a lot of people who are like zeroed in on the intricacies of managing a convention battle. Manafort was brought in for that discrete purpose. He was then out, and I have yet to see any evidence that his work associated with the campaign had anything to do with any of these charges.
Allow me to enlighten you, Congressman. First of all, it is a legitimate question of what the president knew about what Manafort was doing, because the suggestion that Manafort was a new commodity for the president is poppycock. He's known him for many, many decades. He's known him for many iterations of his life. and who, I'm not, no, first of all, as you well know, I don't believe that the standard for acceptable behavior in our government, let alone our presidency, is if it's not a felony, you're fine. I don't see criminality as some kind of litmus test as you being okay in public office. So let's put the standard to the side.
We're talking about a sentencing. We're talking about a criminal sentence.
No, but you're making a larger point, and I'm responding to it with some different context. One, we need to know what the president knew about Manafort, because everybody who knows Paul Manafort, as somebody who grew up in New York politics, knows what he was about overseas and knew that he made money in ways that you may not want to know. So the surprise factor, very low for this president in my estimation. Secondly, Paul Manafort colluded with people connected to Russian interference. Did he commit
a polling argument?
It's not a polling. Oh, it's not a polling argument.
Sharing of the polling?
You took internal data. You gave it to somebody that the government believes is connected to Russian intelligence, and then the Russian trolls started targeting the same places and faces that the campaign did. That is collusive behavior.
You're really making the argument that the polling information that Paul Manafort may or may not have shared with the Russians was like the
not
thing
may
that
or may
makes
not.
the evidentiary collusion?
He did. No, here's the problem.
None of the polling was right. Every poll in America on the 2016 presidential election
was basically
wrong.
It's not about its accuracy.
It's about that he was sharing like some shoddy polling information?
This is what collusion is. Collusion is a behavior. You're saying if it's not a crime, it doesn't count, and he wasn't charged with a crime that has to do with this behavior. You are correct. You are correct. But I don't see a felony as the standard. Collusion is a behavior. Conspiracy or a felony in furtherance of that action would be a crime. I'm not saying Manafort committed a crime, but I'm saying he gave
the evidentiary burden, Chris. I get all that, right? You're saying there are bad things people can do that fall short of crimes that are bad things.
That he did do.
I'll grant that.
That he did do, that Roger Stone did do, that Trump Jr., Jared, and Manafort did do. But they all did things that were wrong.
But Chris, what is the way as a country that we vet out the truth or falsity of those claims? Typically, the forum that we use for truth or falsity is a court of law. Now, if Robert
we know the truth of the matter is asserted.
Hold on. Let me finish the argument.
Please.
If Robert Mueller had evidence that there was conspiracy with Russia on the part of Paul Manafort, he would have charged him for doing that.
You're right.
But he never brought those charges.
That's true.
For you and others to just like castigate the president over these issues is very unfair because
no, it is not.
The evidentiary standard hasn't been met. No one has ever gone and proven any of these things.
The standard is not unless it's a felony, it's fine. You want it to be that.
It's not about the conduct, it's about proving it's not the severity of the conduct.
It has been proven. He gave the polling data to a bad guy connected to Russian intelligence. The trolls wound up targeting the same places and faces.
But if that was proven in court, and if that was a crime,
it's not
it would have been charged as such.
It's
conspiracy with a foreign government?
It's not a conspiracy.
Well, look, this is one of the reasons why David Cicilline and I are introducing bipartisan legislation to tighten down on the foreign agent activity that occurs in the United States. Paul Manafort, as you well know, is not one of the only dudes that engages in representing foreign governments, and we should all crack down on that.
Congressman, pick your poison. Either, if it's not a crime, you don't want to talk about it and leave the president alone, or you want to change the rules to tighten the screws down more on exactly what your guys did.
Look,
which is
regardless of how you feel about the president or Paul Manafort or any of the characters in this particular saga, it is a problem in Washington that people represent foreign governments and they don't register, and then the enforcement mechanisms to find those people and hold them accountable are toothless. Republicans and Democrats agree on this, and actually there's legislation moving in the Congress now to deal with it. So that's a positive. But when you try to then say, well, Manafort shared this polling information, so clearly that's evidence of collusive behavior, no one has proven that in a court of law.
You're just saying
Mueller
that
on CNN.
No.
Yeah, Mueller says,
Mueller
but he hasn't proved. So because Mueller, who along with a team of people who've donated to the Clinton campaign,
here we go.
donated to Obama's campaign. Well,
Bob Mueller is more Republican than you've been on your best day.
Listen, it's not just Mueller. It's the members of his team that reflect bias against the president. But he doesn't get to be the judge, jury, and executioner. He's in charge of the Office of Special Counsel. But merely the fact that he has made an allegation in court does not mean it is true. The reason we have judges and juries is to go and test those things.
Paul Manafort never denied it. It's not about a felony or you're fine. You can do bad things that are not a crime. And for you to be disinterested in that is silly. You
It's
care
not
about things
disinterest.
all the time
It's about the
that aren't
evidentiary
crimes.
standard. I'm not saying we don't care about things that aren't crimes. I'm saying we're not going to impeach anyone
didn't even
for something
deny
that
it.
isn't a crime.
He didn't even deny giving it to him.
That's because he was making a plea deal, but as you've seen through
Which he
Jerome
then
Corsi,
lied about. If he was going to lie about other things, why not lie about this?
But you have evidence on the record that the Mueller team was trying to get people into those plea agreements and then force them to lie about Trump.
And now,
that's why Jerome Corsi.
First of all,
hold on, Chris. Hold on.
What proof do you have that Mueller tried to get people to lie about the president?
Corsi's testimony. Corsi saying publicly that the reason that his plea deal got shattered was because he was unwilling to lie. So
that's what he says. You don't have any proof that that's what happened, Mr. What's your evidentiary standard?
Look,
Jerome Corsi, not somebody that I think you would hang your hat on as a credibility contest. Now you want to take his word on.
No, look, I'm not saying that
I
Corsi
can't
is
take
like
Mueller's word, but you want to
credibility.
take Corsi's word.
No, I think all these things should be tested. I think all of them should be tested.
That's what we're doing right now.
I think the judicial forum is the right way to test them, and I certainly don't look.
It's not the only forum, Matt.
Chris, if this is what they got, if what the Democrats got is that Manafort shared some polling information with some people that were loosely affiliated with Russians, I think that clearly that is not going to result in impeachment.
What would satisfy you? Unless you had a picture of like Donald Jr. with Putin on his lap. He wouldn't go under oath, and that's why
he answered
wouldn't go
interrogatories under oath. That's not true.
Yeah, that were doctored up by his lawyers to make sure he wasn't exposed to anything.
That would be a bar violation that you're alleging.
Come on,
so if you have knowledge of someone doctoring evidence, well, they're sworn responses under oath, Chris. My point is, your question was what would raise the level of impeachment?
Carefully lawyered.
That doesn't mean
a president has the highest duty in this nation to be honest. He has the highest duty in this nation to be straight. He wouldn't go under oath. He promised us he would, Matt. And then
Adam
he mocked
Schiff
his
went
promise.
on television and said, we have the goods on Trump, that we have demonstrable evidence of collusion. And they have come up with zero. And right now, the big problem that the Democrats have is that you got one group of people who run the institution of power, and Pelosi and Schiff and Elliot Engel and that crowd. And then you got a whole other group of people who actually run the energy of the party. AOC, Presley, Tlaib, that crowd. And so I think that, this schism is going to be interesting to watch play out, because you even saw Ocasio-Cortez say today she does not agree with Pelosi that you take impeachment off the table. And so I think that is the real...
So did Nadler. Nadler said that as well. But look, I get the gamesmanship of what's going on politically, trying to push Democrats to have a position now on impeachment before they even know what the heck they're talking about.
We didn't push him. Wait, we didn't push him. Nancy Pelosi came out and said to the Washington Post.
She said, I don't think he's worth it. But in truth, she's always been shy on impeachment. Even before the midterms, she was saying, if you can't get removal in the Senate, and I mean, you're not seeing a lot of buy-in from Republicans about this or anything that goes against the president's interests.
That's because there's no basis
then what's
for it.
That's not the basis for your guys being supplicants. You're supplicants because you think it works for you with this president. You're afraid of what he'll do to you in primaries. Oh, absolutely it is.
Come on, Chris. We believe in this president building an economy that works for the forgotten men and women, renegotiating trade deals, ending wars, and giving the Americans a sense of optimism that is measurable.
Sense of optimism?
Absolutely. When you look at consumer confidence, business confidence, if you look at the way manufacturers are investing in capital investment, that shows tangible evidence of an optimism that raises wages. We've got wages growing at the fastest rate in a decade.
So
good things are happening in this country. And the fact that Democrats want to talk about the crimes that Paul Manafort committed prior to 2016
you guys derailed the presidency.
Is a freaking joke.
You guys derailed a
that's
presidency.
why Trump's going to win.
You guys derailed a presidency over sex in the Oval Office.
You guys, I was in high school.
You guys,
so
I know,
really
but let me tell you, Brother Gaetz, if you had been here at that time, you and I would have been having this exact discussion.
I don't want to.
You would have been part of the morality police like Mike Pence was back in the day.
Listen,
Mike Pence used to write essays about how we must conform to a moral standard with our elected officials.
This is what you do. You invite guests on your show to tell them what they would have believed 10 years ago.
I'm saying I would have liked to have seen you then. No, I invite you on the show to do exactly what you're doing, to make your argument to my audience about what you think matters and what you think is going to happen, and you're always welcome to do exactly that.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it, man.
Congressman Matt Gaetz, truly, I appreciate it. Be well.